This Lakers season was a disappointment and was tough for everyone involved. The players, coaches, the organization, and of course the fans. But this season will have lasting effects for many and will cost people their jobs. Obviously, one is of course Frank Vogel. The Lakers already fired him, and although many believe he's just the scapegoat, there are some valid reasons for his dismissal. I won't go into further detail because I already discussed that in a previous video, but he's only the first domino to fall, and many others will lose their jobs and maybe even end their careers. The Lakers have yet to formally dismiss the rest of the coaching staff, and really their jobs are up in the air. It depends on how the Lakers approach the head coaching search. Traditionally, the head coach will pick his own assistants and staff. So the head coach they hire will likely not use the current staff and bring in his own. However, if the Lakers decide to treat it like they treated Frank Vogel's hiring, then the front office will choose the assistants, which could mean that the current assistants like Phil Handy and David Fizdale could still be fired, or maybe the Lakers decide to keep them or even promote them to head coach. So we'll see how that goes. Now let's move on to the players. I honestly believe after this season, a lot of these players have played their last game in the NBA. This Lakers team was really bad. So if you couldn't crack the rotation on this team, that really says something. That means you're really awful and shouldn't be in the league. Trevor Ariza had a very disappointing season, and Frank Vogel really tried to incorporate him into the lineup. Many fans were holding on to him as the missing piece while he was injured, because the team really needed someone of his size and skill set. A big wing that could hit the three and play defense. He couldn't do either of those things consistently, especially on defense. What we needed was Trevor Ariza from 10 years ago. This season he could barely move, and eventually he found himself out of the rotation in favor of younger, fresh out of the G League players like Wesley Johnson and Wenyen Gabriel. I doubt he gets another NBA contract with him being 36 years old and his performance this season. Kent Bazemore, yikes. Really didn't do much this season except play garbage time. He's never been a great shooter. His best three-point shooting percentage was last season, and this season showed that that was an outlier. He's a bit undersized for his position and didn't really do anything well this season, so I doubt he gets another NBA contract. DeAndre Jordan, yeah, I think this dude is done. I was surprised that the Sixers signed him right away when the Lakers waived him. First of all, he's a center, a position that's getting used less and less in the NBA. And really, he's made a career out of being an athletic big. He's no longer moving like he used to. He's not jumping as high. He's not even giving the same amount of effort. He's just on the court, being a 7-footer, and not doing much else. Really, what is expected of him these days is just to block shots, get rebounds, and catch lobs. And he didn't really do any of that well. This season with the Lakers really showed that he doesn't belong in the league anymore. Dwight Howard is in a similar situation to DeAndre Jordan. He's a center who's lost a step, and he's made a career from his athleticism. But he still puts in the effort. He still goes after rebounds, contests shots, and even catches lobs. And although he's definitely not as good as he was in the past, he can still provide some valuable minutes to a team. So I don't think he's out of the league just yet, but I do think he plays a very minimal role for a team. End of the bench, veteran presence type of role. Not a starting center like the Lakers were using him this season. Wayne Ellington also found himself out of the rotation. He never was a great defender and a bit undersized for his position. But he's still a good shooter, and you can always use a shooter. If he's out of the league next season, I could understand why, but I think some team could use him as an end of the bench, use in case of emergency type of player. Similar to how the Lakers were using him in garbage time and when they had no other options. Avery Bradley. My goodness, he was bad. But he might get another job for the team that Frank Vogel coaches next, because Vogel's really the only one that saw any value in Bradley's game. Really, I don't understand Vogel's infatuation with him. I get he's kind of a pesty defender that goes after it, but at the same time, sometimes he's just out there running around. DJ Augustin actually played pretty well for the Lakers for the last few games. I think he gets another NBA contract. He can be a veteran presence who can lead the offense in spurts and shoot the three ball very efficiently. He's older and undersized, which is why he was available for the Lakers in the first place. So it's definitely not a sure thing. Melo. I really think it's up to him at this point if he wants to keep playing. He said himself that he's not sure about his future, but he's shown that he's still a valuable player in the league that can score at will. Although he is likely to have a minimal role, the fact that the Lakers really relied on his scoring shows how poorly this team was constructed. I believe the rest of the Lakers roster is pretty safe in terms of having jobs in the league. Now they might find themselves playing for another team, but they'll still be NBA players. But the fact is, this season really damaged the careers of some players. Guys like THT, Kendrick Nunn, heck, even Anthony Davis have seen a dip in their perceived value around the league because of how bad this season went. And I think this season will end some careers. It really is unfortunate because a lot of these players, if in the right situation last season, could have still shown that they had value. If you got one guy like Trevor Ariza or Kent Bazemore on your team to play that end of the bench role, to be the veteran leader, then that could have some value to the team. But if half of your roster is made up of those type of players, an old dude that should spend most of the time on the bench, then that's going to be a catastrophe like we saw this past season. It really is unfortunate that the incompetence of the front office caused and or will cause people their jobs. Hopefully they learn from their mistakes and we don't have to experience this again.